Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on the video. This is Rachel, and I came back in to continue my series on dating while gray. Now, I left you off with the policeman leaving that day, and Playa Playa is in the backyard. So I'm gonna start the video off with the disclaimer, okay? My disclaimer is, yes, I was stupid. Yes, I should not have continued singing this fool. And yes, I was stupid. I'm just going to say that again. So let's just get to it. So the policeman leaves, and I am a little, confused. I don't know what to do. I just been caught in a cheating situation that I did not think could ever happen. Now, remember, I told you that I'm newly dating after being divorced, so this is all new to me because I haven't been on a date in almost 18 years because I have been married. So I walk back in the backyard. Playa Playa is cracking up. He thinks it's funny. He tells me this thing that he says. He was like, "Oh, you one of those." And I was like, "One of those, what do you mean?" And I go into trying to apologize to him, because I had him in this situation. And he held up his hand and he said, "No need to apologize. I like that shit." And I was like, "What you mean?" And he said that he likes a woman with a little fire in her, and that it was a turn on to him. A sick bastard. I should have known then. So I really want the night to end. I am, embarrassed, just feeling bad that, the police officer went away thinking that I was a bad person, because I really wasn't. In my adult life, I had really only dated one man, and that was my husband. Because if you think about it, I got with him when I was 21 years old. And prior to that, I say I didn't even know what love was until I met my husband. The moment I looked across the room and saw him, it was lights out for anybody else that I had ever met, or, because it was that instant. But back to Playa Playa. So, me and him continue to talk all the time. I want him to go home, but he won't go home. So something in me says, you know what, Rachel, just roll with it. It is what it is. It happened. The man told you he wasn't going to be able to come, but he came anyway. And later on, I had emailed him, and he basically told me that he had went in for a couple hours, and that they realized they didn't need him, and that he had decided to, come over my house. So I fucked that up. So on with Playa Playa. So Playa Playa, and guys, it's raining here, but I don't want to cut my air on because, I've had it on for days, and I hope you can hear me because I hear the storm, and I just hope you can hear me. So I end the night with Playa Playa. He doesn't seem to have a problem with it. He says that shit turns him on. So I continue to date him. Now, the reason why I call him Playa Playa, have you ever met a guy that from all outward appearances, he got it going on? Now, let me just backtrack and say this. At the time, I had a very good job. I was financially stable, and I didn't need anything monetarily from him. But his little swagger made me like him. Let me first tell you how I met him. I was at work. And again, I told you at the time I worked at a place where I was the only black person in this building. Literally the only black person. So one day I was on my way to get me some coffee in the break room. And right before you get to our break room, there was the mail room. So as I'm approaching the mail room, I see a black guy. So just being in this building and never getting a chance to see anybody for 8 hours, anybody that is of my skin tone, as I walk up, I smiled at him, and then he said, "Hey, you, how you doing? What you doing here?" So I'm like, where do I know this guy? So he could tell as I got closer to him that I didn't recognize him at all because I didn't. So I said, "Oh, hey, where do I know you from?" And then he says, "I'm your mailman." And so I was, standing there, and I looked at him and I said, "He does look familiar, you know." And then he says, "Well, I'm not your mailman anymore. As you can see, I'm delivering for businesses now." So as I stood there and talked to him, I realized that yes, he was my mailman, in the past. So we get to talking, and, I like him. He's funny. And so I tell him, I said, "Well, I better get back." And he was like, I go to walk away, and he grabs my arm and he says, you're not going to give me your phone number. So I was like, okay, and I gave him my number, and I went on and got coffee, didn't think anything about it. A few days later, he called me. And so I explained to him, because I tell everybody right off, I got 2 kids. I can't date all willy-nilly like that, so my dates can only be on the weekends that my kids are gone with their dad, because first of all, my kids are, have just gone through a divorce, and basically they don't want me nor their dad to be dating. So he said he understood because he had kids himself, and he could respect that. So actually our first date was he came back to my job at lunch and took me out to lunch. So the first date was just about an hour date, because I just get an hour for lunch. And he took me to a little local restaurant. We had lunch, we laughed, we talked, and I liked him. He had on his uniform. I guess he came from the mail truck because he had on his uniform. So then after that day, he had said, I would like to go on a real date. So that first date, we went to dinner. And pretty much when I was dating him in the beginning, the very beginning of when I first met him, we did a lot of talking on the phone, because I really couldn't, be all out during the week when my kids had activities after school, sports and all that stuff. So during the week, I talk to him a lot on the phone. So on the phone, he came off as a really nice guy. I did start to notice that he bragged a lot. He bragged about all the money that he had been in the military, that he owned his own home, and just bragging. Then he something that he started to do that I didn't like, he talked about other women, the women that he had dated, and how he had all these women in his life and blah blah blah. So I was like, why would he be talking about that? But I didn't pay any attention to it, because remember, I'm newly divorced. I, thought that maybe this is what's out here now. So we go to dinner, and while we're at dinner, he had a wandering eye. So I was sitting there, thinking, okay, this guy, he's handsome. He has a decent job. He is my age. He looks good on paper. And, I like him. But what's up with this wandering eye? Then it went a step further. Like if a woman will walk past and just say she has some big legs or something, he would comment. So it's your first date, and you're saying to yourself, okay, after this, okay, I'm going to eat this free meal, and I'm going to, continue this date on, but I'm not going to date him again, because if I was going to be with a cheater, I could have just stayed with my husband. So I finished the date, and I told him that I want to go home. And so he said, well, I thought you could stay out later, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, no, I think that, we should end this date. And he drove home. He was talking. He drove me home, and he was talking, but I was kind of quiet. So when we get to the door, I tell him that, I don't think that we should see each other anymore, because, I wasn't for all those games. So he tried to act like he don't know what I'm talking about. And so he says, well, I don't want to, not see you anymore. Can you want to go sit in the back and let's talk? So I was like, no, 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 no need. I mean, I'm not for your games. I don't want to be another link in your chain. So he stood there and he kept asking me, let's just talk. And he said, maybe, I come off as a bad guy or whatever, but I'm really not. So I said, well, okay, if he wants to talk and he seems like he likes me, I'll go ahead and talk to him. I'm home, I'm safe. So we go in my backyard, we talk, and again, when you're just sitting one-on-one talking to him, he was a nice guy. He had been in the military, and he led a very adventurous life, being all over the world, in the military. So I said, well, he's nice. He's real gentlemanly, but he has this thing that's like, the only way I could describe it is he was kind of slick, if you can kind of understand what I mean. Like, he dressed nice. He was not flashy, but you could tell he was a guy that had gotten in his 40s and probably had a lot of women in his past, and they had kind of blown up his head, and he couldn't understand, little old me really not wanting to date him. So I actually believe that maybe he really wasn't feeling me all like that, but just the fact that I tried to end it. It was a strike against his ego, I guess. So now that's what I believe in hindsight. At the time, I was thinking, well, he's really pushing for us to continue to see each other, so maybe he does like me. You remember when I started off the video and I said that I was being stupid? Okay. So I talked to him in the backyard. I continue on seeing him. So he continued to do little silly things. Like, I remember one time he wanted to buy some fish. So we went to the grocery store and we're looking at fish, and I'm looking down in the counter, in the display case. And when I look up, I notice him and the girl that was at the fish counter, like, kind of making goo-goo eyes at each other. So I was like, you know what? What the hell am I doing? What am I doing? I'm not even feeling him like that. I'm just starting out dating. It ain't that serious. Look, motherfucker, if you don't want to be, monogamous, or no, if you want to be a player, play, but at least have the respect for the person that you currently out with, not to do it in front of them. So, I'm mad when we go back to the house, and I'm like, soon as this motherfucker fry this fish, I'm gonna eat his meal and I'm going home. So I eat the meal, and I try to ask him, I tell him, I'm ready to go home. So he was like, well, I'm not ready for you to go home. So I was like, I tell him again, look, man, look, shit, you got issues with women. Ain't nobody got time for this shit. So he's laughing and saying, why, he said he was a very visual man. He didn't mean any harm by it. Come on, calm down. So I'm sitting there still wanting to go home, but I'm like 40 miles from where I live, and I'm not trying to have this. So this part is funny. So he says, okay, he calms me down. I decide to stay. We watching television. So he says, I'll be right back. And he goes towards the back of his house. So I'm sitting there about 15 minutes, and I start to wonder where this man at. So right as I get up to walk towards the back of his house to see what he's doing, because I'm thinking, oh shit, is he a fucking psycho and he's back there preparing a torture chamber for me or something? He comes walking up towards the front part of his house with his shirt off, and he says, come with me, like takes my hand. So he walks to the back of his house, and he has a bathroom in his bedroom, and he's got all this shit set up, candles. He had some hot oil sitting on the tub, and he done sprinkled rose petals all in the bathtub. I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? I'm not doing this. what the hell? So I stand there for a minute and I'm like, really? You know, really? You just at the grocery store tripping and you think I'm about to get in a romantic tub with you? And then he was like, you know how men are, girl, I done all this for you. I'm feeling you, baby. Just, let me just relax you. So I remember, disclaimer, I was like, you know what is the harm? So he was like, especially when he said that he wasn't getting in the tub. So I was like, okay. I said, well, I don't know you like all like that. This is so stupid. Now I'm about to be naked, but I'm telling him I don't know him like that. So I tell him, go out the bathroom, let me get dressed, undressed, and then you come back in when I get in the tub. Because I wasn't planning on having any sexual relationship with him, y'all. Not at that point. So I get in the tub. It's nice. He massages me. The oils, the brother could massage. I told you he was a player. He knew his shit. He knew how to wine and dine and romance a woman. Okay. So I ended up spending the night. Nothing happened. One thing I'll say is I don't know why he didn't try to like pressure me to do anything, but he really didn't. In the beginning he did ask, but I was like, no, we're getting to know each other. I'm not ready to jump into all that, but I will stay the night. So I stayed the night, got up. He cooked breakfast. He was just really nice. That's why I say he flashed hot and cold. So I go home and we have several other dates after that. And then he calmed down. He didn't do all that where when you're with him, he's looking at other women or commenting. Now, he still was bragging and shit about all that he had. And I never understood what that was about. I'm still green. I don't know all this shit. So it comes upon this one time. He knew that my kids were gone with their dad. And he was like, can you come stay the weekend? So by that time, something had happened. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come over and stay the weekend. It'll give me something to do. I've done everything that I need to do when my kids are away. And I just had this long, empty weekend ahead of me because my kids are gone with their dad for the weekend. I pack my shit, get in my car, drive 30 miles because he lives on the other side of town. I get there. He comes to the door. And there's a woman there. I'm sitting there like, and you could tell that, like, he was like, come on in. And the reason why I know that it was like a woman, like somebody there to see him, because she was like, I know you didn't, when I came up, I had my little overnight bag, and I was like, hey. And then he was like, hey. And I noticed he was acting funny, like, not opening the door all the way. Now, he told me to come in, but it's like he wanted to tell me something before I came in. So I kind of like stepped back and I was like, what's going on? Did you have company? And he was like, yeah, I did. Not really, upset about it or anything. It was almost like he was saying, give me a minute, let me get rid of her. So when he opens the door for me to come in and I see the girl relaxed on the couch, I see 2 glasses. I said, look, I said, you know what? I said, and then the girl jumps up, like getting ready to confront me. And I tell her, I said, hold on. I said, look, and I directed my conversation to him. I said, you know what? I don't even like you all like that. I said, you were really, I said, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but you were something to do. I said, just like we agreed in the beginning, you were dating me because I was fun, and I was dating you because you were fun, and we agreed that when we were bored or something we would hang out, but we agreed early on that we were just friends. So all this that you're doing, if you're going to have company, why would you invite me over knowing that you got a woman here? So the girl kind of stood back and listened. And then I looked around him and I was like, sister, let me just tell you something. I said, I don't know what's going on here. I said, I have no idea. This man invited me over his house. I said, I've been dating him for a few months now. And I said, but trust me when I tell you this. I'm about to go home. You can stay here. I said, because I just got divorced. And I said, I don't really need all of this drama in my life. I said, I don't know what games he's playing. Now, all the time, he's like, no, she's leaving. And so she like, I'm not leaving. I ain't going no motherfucking. You gonna explain to me. And then the girl was like, no, come on in. Come on in. So I said, no, you know what? I ain't trying to start no confusion. If this is your man, I said, have at it, girl. And she said, no, come in, because I want to. And she said, I don't have anything against you, because obviously you didn't know what was going on. And obviously I didn't either. So I'm standing. I said, no, I'll stand here. While you know, if you know, because I did want to hear what happened. So she was like, she came up to him and she like slapped him on the back, and she was like, what the hell are you doing? You playing games? And so he's standing there just cheesing away. So I told her, I said, girl, look, I'm about to go. I said, y'all can have at it. I'm about to go. So I get my little overnight bag, walking back to the car. Now it's hot as fuck. I'm mad. Not mad because, you know, he was playing games. Mad because I didn't break off with this bastard earlier. Having fun, being wined and dined. Like, he took me out on boats. We went to a cabin over the weekend, just having fun. But I was thinking to myself, was all that worth just, you know, him playing games with you like this? So I'm walking back to the car, sweat rolling off my damn forehead, because steam coming out my ears, because just the fact that, you know, I allowed him to play games with me. So I go home and you know, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with him. I'm not talking to him. So I guess the bastard didn't call me, and you know, he knew to give me some time, because I wasn't feeling him anymore, and I was determined I was not, you know, going on any days. It was over. Hell with him, because I didn't need it. So the first week he didn't call me, and then that you know, that weekend I had to pack my kids up, and we went back to our home city, Cleveland, because they were having a cookout in the city that I grew up in, you know, where I'm from. So while I'm there, you know, this is at my grandma's house, a house that she's lived in since I probably was about 5 or so. So pretty much everybody in the neighborhood we know, because, you know, my grandmother has been living there like 45 years. So while I'm there, I see a boy that I used to go to school with, and that when we were in school, you know, everybody had crushes on him, and, you know, I knew that he wasn't interested in me, because when I was in school, I was a nerd, and he probably didn't even know I existed. So one of my uncles invited him over to the cookout. So when we were there, you know, as the night wore on, or the day wore on, eventually he came up to me and he was like, don't I know you from somewhere? So I wanted him to remember me, because you know how you're thinking, I'm not gonna remind him that I went to high school with him. So as we stood there and talked, he said, oh yeah, we went to high school together. And then he started asking me, you know, what I've been doing since high school, blah blah blah. We ended up spending the rest of the night talking. So he told me, he said, hey look, I live in Texas, and I'm just home for the I think it was a holiday. It might have been 4th of July. Maybe that's why I went home, because I remember him saying something like he was home from the holiday. It was just the only way I can think the reason why he was there is it must have been a holiday. So he says, give me your email address. And we both, I was just recently divorced, and he was actually married. Okay. So at the time, we're just two high school kids that haven't seen each other for years, and we were going to email each other. He lived in Texas. He was in the Air Force, and I guess after he got out, he settled in Texas and was working there. So I said, no problem. I give you my email address. So, you know, that's over. I go back to my home city, and then this asshole, Playa Playa, calls me. No, he did not say, Rachelle, I know you're mad at me. And he was like, I want to make it up to you. And he was like, I got something coming to you, and I just want you to know that I apologize, and that, and I let him go on, and I said, you know what? I said, it's no thing. I said, I thought that we were just going to be friends. I said, I wasn't looking for anything deep. I said, so that's why I don't understand why you were playing those games. We said it in the beginning that we were just going to be friends. So I told him, I said, but after the little stunt that you pulled, having the other girl there, I really don't want to get involved in no craziness, that, with a guy that I don't plan to be married to, or a long-term relationship. We were just hanging out to have something to do because you claim you were single, and I was recently divorced. I said, I don't even know why you're playing all these damn games. So I said, and I'm gonna get off the phone. Excuse me, I'm gonna get off the phone because after a while how you just don't want to hear the bullshit anymore. So I get off the phone. The next day he sent some flowers, this big huge box of flowers, to my house. And then that was like a Saturday or something. Then when I went to work, it was some flowers there. And then he came to the actual office that I worked in that building. It just, was just too much. And so like I said, now looking back, I don't think that it was so much that he was into me. I think what it was is that, not that I saw through his games, but I wasn't for his games. And so I kept shutting him down. Well, kind of, sort of. And for him, I just think because he was like a slick, player, that in his world, nobody breaks up with him. He's going to be the breaker upper, if that's a word. Kind of follow me? So that was the end of him. Because after that, I took his beautiful flowers, passed them all out. I had vases at work because the flowers were pretty. Really, really huge flower arrangements that I know that he paid a lot of money for. But I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And then in the meantime, and in between time, the guy that I got reacquainted with from high school, he and I started emailing each other. And we were just like talking about, what had occurred in our lives since high school. All pretty innocent. No, because the man was married, okay? And so we started emailing. I told him that I was recently divorced. He made a joke, he said, I kind of like you, Rachel. And then I was like, I wanted to say I loved you in high school, but you didn't even know I was alive. But so I just laughed and didn't think anything about it. And then as we started, we went from emailing each other to, I would talk to him while I was at work. And then, I'm sorry, y'all, I had to cut the video. My son walked into the house and scared the living shit out of me. So what I was saying, we went from that to, then I was talking to him in the evenings at home. So one day I asked him, because again, I didn't want to be one of those women that, was, I guess, talking to a married man. All that time that we were corresponding through email, and then he was calling me while I was at work, I felt funny. And, I told him, I said, I said, this is kind of cheating, on your wife. And then he said that he didn't believe that it was. And I'm sorry, I'm getting something. Okay, so I asked him why, and he told me that his wife was actually in and out the house. And I was like, what do you mean? So he says that he believed that his wife was cheating on him, and that they had been arguing, and that she at the time had gone to stay, I guess, with a family member. He told me that he didn't have proof that she was, but he just had some inklings, and that his gut was telling him that she was cheating. Yeah, that she was cheating. So at that time, I asked him, so this is why you're able to talk in the evenings? And he said, yeah. So, you know, I had told him that, because I felt funny about everything, because I could tell that this was moving to something a little bit more than friendship, even though I lived in Ohio and he lived in Texas, I could just tell that we were becoming very comfortable with each other, and I didn't want to do that. So I told him, I said, you know what? This is what I would like for you to do. I said, you're a friend from my old neighborhood when I grew up. You're a boy that I went to high school with. Straighten out your business. I said, because what you're doing, if your wife finds out, she's going to be mad at you, because even though you don't think this is cheating, it really is. So for a little bit, we didn't talk, and I think it was like a couple months. So I was at work one day, and he called me at work. And so when I was happy to hear from him, but I noticed that he was really, really kind of down. So I asked him what was going on, and that he said that, he had a big blow up. He found out that his wife was cheating, and actually she had moved out, and that she actually moved with the guy that she was cheating with, and admitted to him the reason why she actually moved is because she was pregnant, and she actually wasn't sure which one of them were, was the father. So I was, I felt sorry for him, because, I going through a divorce, and especially the way, finding out that your wife is pregnant and you're not the father, or it's a possibility that you're not the father, had to be really heavy. So, I told him, I said, well, I'm at work now. I said, if it's okay, I'll call you when I get home. Just hang in there. It gets better. The stuff that you say to someone that's going through, stuff like that. So I called him, and he laid it all out, how he set up a little trap to catch her, and that, it all panned out, and he did catch her cheating. So, over the next couple of months, him and I continued to talk, and because I guess they were legally separated, because he said that they had property and things that I guess that they needed to kind of settle, so they had to get a legal separation. And he said he also didn't want, I guess, the baby that was going to be born. It was just a whole mess. I think he didn't want her to benefit from, I guess, what he made and all that, and with this baby. He said he didn't even want her on his medical, because he didn't want to pay for the birth of possibly another man's baby. When I tell y'all, it was a mess. It was a mess. I really felt sorry for him. And I'm not just saying that because I was interested in him. It was just a big old mess. So as time went on, they continued on battling, and then eventually, the woman, his wife, said that she wanted a divorce. I guess the baby was born, they had a paternity test, and he was not the father. And in the beginning, I really believed that he didn't want the divorce. Just like when I used to talk to him, and I swear to God, I was talking to him as a friend. I told him something like that: if you accept her back, you can't, bring up the past. That means that you accept her back with the baby, and you go on, and you have to love the baby. You can't treat that baby, bad, because you agreed to accept her back with everything. I said, now, before you let her come back, I said, you got to sit down and sort out your feelings, because once she steps back in that house and you agreed to accept her back, then all that other stuff you got to let go. So he told me that he had to think about it, and then In the meantime, he was like, would you like to come down to Texas? So I'm going to end the story right there. And that is going to be the name of the next episode. And it's going to be called My Texas Cowboy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you have any questions, any comments, I welcome it. And this is just my journey through all of this. And I'll say I made a lot of mistakes. I was very naive and when I was meeting some of these guys, and all of this transpired over a 4 year, if I remember correctly, a 4 year span after I got divorced. And y'all, I'm gonna tell you, I'm just gonna say this. When I say that I was dating like a fool, I was dating all kinds of men. I mean, I ran into some crazy shit. I ran into scary shit. And I even ran into a situation that was so sad. Um and just looking back on that, that was in my mid 40s, late 40s that I was doing all this dating. And I will say this, there came a time when I was dating that, I mentioned that my kids were not feeling it, because there was a recent divorce, they were torn up and, they didn't want to see us dating. But there came a time when my son was about 19. And one day I was in the kitchen cooking and he came and sat at the table. And one of these guys had just left and my son sat there and you're bustling around the kitchen and cooking and opening cabinets, and when I looked at him, he looked at me with such disgust. And so whatever I was cooking, I turned it off and I asked him, I said, what's going on? Something happening? Because I didn't know if the look on his face was disgust or that he was upset with something that was going on in his life. So what he told me is that, Mom, he was like, I don't like that guy that just left. And then I was like, okay. And then he said, why are you dating like this? And I was like, I was trying to explain to him. I said, Scott, I'm divorced now, and your dad is seeing other people. I said, I need to date too. And then I could just tell he didn't like it. And even though I was, as a parent, trying to explain that life goes on, that, you close one chapter and you open another chapter after you have a divorce, just the look on my son's face made me stop all dating. Now, this is further along. The stories that I'm going to tell you happened prior to this discussion with my son. And what I got out of that is I have to stop. Because for one thing, the son that I raised, I don't want him to believe that a woman has men coming in out of her life. Now, again, I didn't let them see a lot because, first of all, for their safety, the safety of our home, I didn't bring a lot of this around when they were home and, weren't with their dad. But they saw enough, or he saw enough, and I especially didn't let my daughter see a lot because at the time when my son was 18, 19, my daughter was only 11, 12, so I really didn't let her see a lot. But when my child said that to me, it made me stop dating. And I just said, you know what? I got one that's still underage. This one is 19, and I got one that's still underage. Maybe I need to cool it until my kids are of age, both of them, because at the time my daughter was about 11 or 12. And then maybe I need to put this dating on the back burner because this is taking away from the time that I have with them. Now, remember, we lived in a city where we just moved there, just me and my kids, and, so we were all each other had. And just the fact that my child was disgusted with me and, you know, was not feeling his mom with these guys. He just was not. And I didn't want him to tell me that, and I continue on dating. So basically, I pretty much stopped. Now, there was one relationship after that, and I'm not going to get into who it was, but it is included in the stories. I just, this whole dating thing when you're older, it's a lot different from when you're younger. You get these men just like they get us with all of our problems and issues that we carry from other relationships, they do too. So all this stuff that they're saying that we come with all this extra baggage, they do too. I've dated men that had 4 kids and the woman was nowhere in sight. And he was looking for a baby's mama. He was looking for me to be a mother to his children. So I'm going to get out of here. The next story is the Texas Cowboy. And again, I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you want to leave comments or you have questions, feel free to do so. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye now.